Everything that you're going to need to know about this upcoming solar eclipse in Aries, which marks a massive turning point in our world, will be laid out for you here. And because it's so important, I've invited somebody really special to join me, Antoinette Mackenzie of Pomegranate Astrology. Antoinette's the astrologer that I go to consult with personally. I recently had her specialty bone mother Saturn in Pisces reading, and it was really next level. Antoinette also has degrees in literature, history, philosophy, including a PhD in literature. I'm honored to have her here with me today to talk about this eclipse. So let's just start off with why are eclipses important in astrology. It's kind of always a big deal.
I sort of feel that like these very potent, fated kind of points. And there's been a lot of fear, I think, generated around them as well, as a lot of sort of like, oh no, the eclipse, sort of, looking up at the sky and hiding. But it's actually more that they really do have this magnification or highlighting of some of the themes that we're actually marinating in, that they bring to light or uncover. They're real portal experiences to endings and beginnings. They can open or take place over a period of time, 6 to sort of even 12 months sometimes.
Yeah, they're overarching narratives, I feel like. So that like they're the big story. Even in the natal chart, I think that the nodes are like that. It's like, here's this big, hero's journey, not to overquote that either, but, it's like, here's this big thing that you're working on your whole life, and let's see how you do. You said big endings, big beginnings, and this is a rare hybrid eclipse, which I've looked into more because I didn't really even know what that meant. This is a hybrid eclipse that happens just about every 10 years. So the last one was November 3rd, 2013, and the next one will be in November 2031. So basically what it means is that all three areas of the moon shadow combine so that you get all three types of solar eclipses in one. That's interesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, every permutation and every possibility. And I mean, it's huge energy in Aries anyway.
This is like a major transition. It's not just a little one, it's like huge, big bang energy is what I'm feeling. And also, what do you think about the fact that this is the second new moon in a row in Aries?
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, the bookends here.
Yeah.
That's a rare thing in itself. To me, it's so tied into this Jupiter cycle as well, with the the dying Zeus Jupiter coming to the end of his synodic cycle and being reborn as a new god. I mean, within a month of this coming new moon eclipse, he will be moving into Taurus and taking up residency there, I think around the 17th of May. That's a big epoch that's going to sort of unfold there. So it feels as though these new moons have somehow been tied to Jupiter, the Jupiter in Aries project. We had that new moon in Aries and it really felt like, okay, here we really had a change of pace and momentum picked up, and it was the seeds of inspiration and action, and everything was starting to move again after a long period of just not really going anywhere. So it feels like these two new moons emphasize what we're doing with this Aries energy and Jupiter and where we're going next, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But to me, ever since, I don't think I've ever noticed two new moons in a row in the same sign for a while. I mean, is that
not
something?
for a while? I'm trying to think back when it was. I mean,
I think there were two in Cancer in 2020 or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just rare. Like there's just an add to this rareness of this particular just exclamation point on it. The Aries is really symbolic of new beginnings, the newest of new. And there's a lot of potential, great creative energy, but it can also be destructive and dangerous. So with Jupiter and Aries, when I look back at the history of it, I'm always like, that's always the starter of something big and aggressive.
I mean, Jupiter makes large anything that is close by, and so it's going to enlarge that warrior energy, which is incredibly powerful and needed at times. Having said that, this I don't know what you think about this particular degree that this eclipse is in, but it's in a decan of a benefic Venusian.
And either one, in the traditional it's Jupiter, and in the Chaldean it's Venus. So either way it's benefic, so that's good news. But this is the changing of the signs. So which also is interesting to me is that we're going from Scorpio and Taurus, which are also Mars and Venus. We're getting the feminine version of Venus, and we're getting the masculine version of Mars.
This whole Mars-Venus dance has been so prominent.
This is just the transition point. So this year we're going to have two of the eclipses are going to be in Aries and Libra, and we still have two more in Scorpio and
Mm.
Taurus finishing up.
Yeah.
So it's every 18 years it returns. The last time was December 27, 2004 through June 22nd, 2006. Thinking back to that time period, you know what happened in 2006? That was when the iPhone was being developed, you know?
Oh my
Because it
goodness.
came out in
Of course.
2007. So that was like the development of that. That's sort of interesting to
Mm.
think about.
That
And
is
then
interesting, isn't it?
yeah, so there could be something that's developing during this time that's going to change the
Yeah.
world because that was a huge change.
We could easily go down all sorts of paths with that one
Yeah.
because technologically, I feel like we're sort of on a bit of a runaway train with everything happening. And I've personally always been an early adopter of technologies and quite
Mm.
comfortable, but yeah, not always comfortable at the moment.
Yeah, it's getting a little uncomfortable. And I
Mm.
think that's part of the point of the Jupiter Cazimi too, which is what my assessment was, is that we need to hold on to human art, human
Yeah,
interaction, the passion that's behind it, the
yeah.
passion that's behind that can ignite the flame. And you mentioned the decan that this is occurring in. It's the same as the Jupiter Cazimi. It's
Mm.
this
Hmm.
igniting and holding on to this humanity and this power, right?
Maybe unifying over that as well, because Jupiter's
Yeah.
got that unifying, coming together. There's that warrior energy coming together. So, it's sort of a camaraderie of people fighting a common cause, even.
Let's talk about some of the aspects that we're getting. So the moon and the sun are going to be entering Taurus on that same day, like after the eclipse,
Yeah.
within 4
Yep.
hours, I think it is. So that's going to lead to an exact square with Pluto. But for the actual eclipse, they're within less than a degree of that out of sign square to Pluto, which means they're in different signs. So that's not an exact square by sign, but by degree, I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it is, but that also adds a layer of complexity to it. So they're squaring within a degree, but they're not exact by sign. What do you think about that? What do you think that means?
As a Hellenistic astrologer, I really do take that sort of sign change quite seriously. At times, it can feel quite black and white. You can really sense that sort of shift, very, very sort of like it was here and now it's there in the
Yeah.
sign. I feel like it's still toned by the close aspects, these close degree aspects. It's like standing on the edge of a high window, and just kind of looking through. And it's
Yeah.
also that anorectic degree. It's a blurring of boundaries, but at the same time, it's the apex of everything that we've come through.
I think of this as a filter almost of Pluto. It's like
Yeah,
you're not
yeah.
getting the worst of it. Like I'm gonna be kind of nice to you still, or I'm like
Yeah.
we're gonna have like one step removed by doing this in different signs, and then,
Mm-hmm.
but also it's interesting to watch even these last few weeks that we've had some of the first aspects to the new Pluto. Mercury
Mm.
made an aspect, Venus making an aspect trine. Pluto can also bring great riches. It can bring
Yeah.
great, wonderful things. Pluto, in its preview placement in Aquarius, we're getting some clues as to how it's going to affect the next 20 years, too. It's kind of giving us little flavors.
Definitely. And it's sort of, when it dips back into Capricorn in June, it's going to be, we might need a bit of a breather there just to try and sort of absorb or calibrate some of the changes that are coming and rethink how we're going to maybe approach them. So it is just a taster. We're not really going to get a real sense of things for a while.
Mhm.
And but it does feel to me, I had this image of and I hope this isn't too random now, but I had this image of Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius as a Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the underworld,
Yeah.
Hades, the dog of Hades. And
Yep.
I even thought of Harry Potter, and how it guarded the Chamber of Secrets, and it was Hagrid's three-headed Cerberus called Fluffy. And I thought,
Fluffy.
I sort of refer to Pluto now in my mind as, there's Fluffy guarding the gate of Aquarius, it's kind of like, is Fluffy, are we going to play him some music and he'll calm down? Or, depending on what aspects he makes, as everything pours into Taurus, we're going to have a little bit of Fluffy, because it's going to be squaring little, everything that turns up in Taurus pretty much immediately,
Immediately. And then everything's just piled up there set to kind of go
Yeah.
down like that. So we have to look at also who's the ruler, which
Good
for
old
Aries is Mars, of course. And I feel like Mars, having been in Gemini for so long and having been really slow in a sign that's so fast and quick, it just felt torturous. It just felt like really
it-
molasses.
yeah.
And at the same time, Mars is in its fall in Cancer, but it's almost like it's in a soothing water. It's like, okay, now I need a little break to come in. And but at the same time, it is in its fall. So if we continue with our Hellenistic rules, the game, we kind of think about what could this be bringing up. So with Mars in Cancer, Mars is going to feel a little more emotional, emotions running higher. I feel like it's a protective energy. So something could come in that makes you feel like you need to protect yourself or protect your family or something.
Yeah.
A dire desire to stand, or even protect the motherland or protect the memory of something,
Yeah.
which that could easily go bad.
I know what you're getting at, and I sort of feel as though that Mars in Cancer is kind of a simmering cauldron that could easily kind of bubble over with the emotional sort of aspect of it. Maybe some tomato sort of sauce is boiling away in the cauldron, and it starts splattering the walls with everything going on with the eclipse, because the eclipse does magnify, especially with Aries and Jupiter coming off that conjunction.
Yeah. And I also put in my notes the thought of Mars ruling this eclipse could be emblematic of some sort of sacrifice or some sort of like maternal feeling sacrifice, which I don't like
Yeah.
thinking about. But this is maybe some
Yeah.
even like martyristic energy, somebody coming up and like taking the hit for everybody kind of thing. I don't know.
My instinct is that it's a messy eclipse. There's a lot sort of going on, but that it's largely a positive new beginning, that we've come off this sort of this cazimi with, our benefic has been hidden from sight. It's been burning up, dying by the sun, ready to be reborn. But it's this feeling of we've got this momentum. It could have a lot of positive elements to it. It's going to feel very enlarged and very emotionally charged, I feel, because eclipses are anyway. It's like, to the power of 3, isn't it?
This particular one too, it feels so much like that because
it's quite tidal. All eclipses are very tidal, I feel, but this one, it's kind of like I had this image of someone in a little kayak, going down the river, and then suddenly they find themselves in the rapids, and then they're heading towards a waterfall, because it's that 29th degree where you're just going to go up and over the top, and there's maybe a lot of fear, but you just have to get through. It's just that feeling of there's no way out but through. Often the fear can be magnified, but over the other side, there's actually something waiting for us that might be a little bit more stable.
That there's a potential for some profound change, new ideas, passion projects. I think forward motion, but also basing it on past ideals. Like maybe re-envisioning those past ideals, but not just trying to cling to them, but maybe saying, okay, that's how things were. Let's try and revision that and bring those good things with us to the future. And leave the things that need to be retired, because we can't just keep holding on. That's not progress. But some of the fears that could come up is fear of like what we were kind of talking about, the way society's going, humanitarian concerns, positive homegrown resistance could be a thing coming up. Instigators for positive change. So some high emotions though, with Mars and Cancer being the ruler, high emotion. Maybe you might feel defensive, or feelings like that, even to the point where betrayal, because it's such a tender, thing, Cancer. And when you have Mars in there, it can just feel like the most devastating betrayal when something doesn't go that way, or wanting to retreat or wanting to lash out. Those are things that could happen. And Pluto being part of that is that there could be some hidden things, like a little bit of a trick, it's like, are you guys quick enough to see this as a trick? Like a manipulation of emotions, or manipulating the fact that we emotionally react so easily to things, especially nowadays. And that it might be a red herring, like, okay, look over here, or this other thing's actually what's really going on.
I think that's happening collectively a lot too. I think we're often deliberately distracted in order to not actually look at what's perhaps really crucial to be tending to as a sort of unified kind of human group. Maybe also as we dip into Taurus, when the sun goes straight into Taurus soon after the new moon, that light of consciousness, that soulful purpose might be bent upon that sort of Venusian project of stabilizing and making beautiful and building wealth or creating process and enjoying that. We're often looking for a stabilizing project, but we're also dealing with some very fixed signs that have very different ideas about how to go about things.
Yeah, I think that's the key to it all, is this fixity that I think is actually what holds people back at times too, because they're so fixated that they're right because it makes you feel good and it makes you feel like you're stable and that you're tethered to something.
In control.
And in control. And the truth is that there's no such thing. And holding on to it makes it worse, harder. So the sun and the moon and the Pluto combination, when we look at Ren Butler's description, so on the plus side for this combination, it's intense and primal nature, feelings of empowerment, potential capacity for profound emotional and physical healing, wholehearted efforts to transform oneself. And then on the other side, it's a proneness to driving obsessions, compulsions, ongoing emotional reactivity, determined attempts to change others rather than oneself. So that's kind of what we're talking about, is being really aware to make space for different opinions with grace and not letting that separate us. But maybe we have a difference of opinion, but we aren't trained to be like, okay, cool, that's your opinion. We're trained to be like, no, you're stupid, you're wrong, you're this, you're that.
It's twinkling outside, Macy. It's raining. No, it's not.
I need to force you to believe what I believe because that makes me feel right.
You're not real. I'm real.
That rigidity or fear, uncertainty, it's very uncomfortable when somebody disagrees with you. People will come onto my channel or whatever and say, do you really believe this? Or this is BS, or astrology is fake, or okay, fine. I respect that you think that. I don't care.
Yeah. And
it's just like, for me, it's not, for me, it's not. For you, it is. That's your reality. Fine. But it is a little off-putting at first because, it just doesn't feel good to hear stuff like that that's oppositional. But it's good practice to get comfortable with dissenting views or opinions and just practice non-reactivity, which is really hard to do. And so, and also, like, preaching to the choir doesn't bring about change. It doesn't promote diversity or tolerance. Yeah, even though it's fun. You agree with me? Great. I love this.
The satisfactions of an echo chamber that we can
Exactly. But it doesn't make us, it doesn't make the world better because we need a diversity of opinions, even if they aren't the ones we like.
Natural diversity is essential for survival and all, on all levels, really. I came up in savage academia, so I'm sort of like used to being picked apart, and it's like, okay, well, but it's often the case that we now live in times too where there's a lot of selective outrage in times that are feeling so unstable. Where we're wanting perhaps a real project of stability and control and predictability, we're going to be maybe more resistant to the status quo being challenged, or to be, our own personal viewpoints or emotional safety feeling destabilized. But in some ways, ironically, it can be better to surrender a little, lean in, and not lash out so much, because that's actually only going to feed the fear.
It totally does. And I think that we're going to need to be leaning on each other more. That's my feeling. The next 2 years, I'm just looking at it going, okay, we need to get over this thing that they're manipulating us to do, and just be cool. Like, if we don't agree, that's fine, but you're still a fellow human being, still like you as you are, whatever you are. Let's work together and have our own opinions. It's fine. It's cool. So the Antoinette degree is one of closure, and 2023 to 2025 are pivotal years for the new world. This is going to be like, we'll look back at those years and go, that's the before and after.
Yes.
So this is what I like about it being on the Antoinette degree, though, in Aries. So tell me what you think about this, Antoinette. The nodes move backwards, right? They move retrograde. So we're entering into the end of Aries. When the node finally exits Taurus, it's going to enter the back door of Aries. When you get to the end of the sign, you've gotten all the lessons of it, kind of. You've completed the journey of the 30 degrees of that sign. But when we're going in backwards, we're being called to gather up the gold of Aries, let's call it. So some of the end game of Aries experience. So it's letting us know, hey, you need to get the gifts of Aries to get through this. Here are the gifts. You need to have passion. You need to have confidence, courage. You need to have strength, independence of spirit, self-awareness. You need to be active. You need to be fearless, but you also don't need to be self-centered. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be combative or overzealous or temperamental or overpowering and belligerence. So that's what I think the main point of this whole thing is, that we're going into 18 or whatever months of the new nodes, Aries and Libra. So what do you need to get through it? That's what I think. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think those are beautiful keywords, because they really do highlight so much of what Aries has been bringing us, and what we can reflect on. Because the 29th degree is kind of that, it's the last chance hotel. It's like we really kind of, you've got the whole project there, and let's really draw on that. And as the nodes move backwards, we're going to be reminded of what we can draw up from this, and also not only replenish and give ourselves, but also let go of what you've just highlighted as well. The 29th degree is always going to feel prickly with an eclipse, or with any even lunation. I love it when people can try to dispel a lot of the fear around eclipses, because this is going to be one with a lot of courage and a lot of passion. But I think that it could just get really fiery, and it could just feel like it gets a bit much. But I think it's going to be quite an opportunity for surrendering, if we can, because I'm all for surrendering around eclipses and not trying to make anything happen.
I agree.
And it's such an active sign that we might want to feel like we need to take action, which could cause some rashness, because it will magnify the rashness perhaps. But to actually sort of sit back and go, okay, I'm on a tidal surge here, and I'm just going to allow this to take me over the edge in my little kayak, and into the pond below, which is a lot calmer, which is part of that. What do you think of the Sabian symbol? Can I ask you about that one?
That's exactly what I love that, because it goes into the pond. So that's perfect. Nice segue, nice transition into the Sabian symbol. Yes, so it's a Sabian symbol, Aries 30, a duck pond, and it's a brood. Which is interesting, because I don't usually think of the brood belonging, like the ducks belonging to the pond. So I like that integration. What came up in Rudyard was the Zen Buddhist concept of the monk, who was trying to become enlightened. And before he was enlightened, he chopped wood and carried water. And then when he became enlightened, what do you do now? Chop wood, carry water. So it's the metaphor of experiencing spirituality in your daily life, and that everything is spiritual, everything is sacred around us. And so easy to go into a forgetting of that. Even the most simple things are miracles. Breathing is a miracle. Having eyes and seeing is a miracle. Everything is spiritual.
Finally, we've kind of taken all of these seeds and these ideas and this fresh spark, this incendiary passion and idealism. And then we're looking through this kind of portal into more kind of Taurian places, where we're going to have to ground and focus a lot of that inspiration in something real. And it's this brood of ducks. It's on a pond. What do we need to raise the ducks? This feels like we need to kind of ground all of our ideas in a sort of more stable material reality. The pond is quite a contained space. It's not a wild river that's just kind of flowing on. It's it's a bounded, still fixity. What we're needing to raise ducks, which are kind of part of the animal part of us, as much as, we've got the animal and the human. We can't forget that the animal has these needs, but we need to actually be able to provide and sustain not only the physical body, but these romantic ideals also need to be brought into some kind of place where we can raise a brood of ducks so that they can actually fly away.
Just one step further is that the ducks belong to the pond, and if you change it to humans, that we belong to the earth doesn't belong to us. Just to keep that. And that's I think that's the message of the Taurus eclipses that we've gotten. It's like, hey, this money doesn't even belong to you. Money's not even real. The banks, money can be like, nothing is real except for the earth that you have under your feet. That's real. To readjust our thinking to the earth belonging to us, and we belong to the earth. The ducks belong to the pond.
to be embodied, but make sure that we're not losing touch with that material embodied belonging. The nodes can exacerbate some of that, especially the North Node, the dragon's head. It exacerbates the hunger, the famishedness for more. It can get a bit greedy in Taurus when it's powered up. A node can want to feed that hunger.
And when we were emailing each other back and forth, just to close, you said you were glad that it's a total solar eclipse rather than a total lunar one. Why did you say that?
I just sort of feel like the new beginnings, the new chapters, the surge of energy with the solar eclipse, it's a little bit more hopeful and exciting. It's a mixed bag always. You never know what's going to happen. It's slightly unpredictable, but it just feels like a fresh infusion of solar energy. Whereas the lunar eclipses can feel a bit more like, well, there's a falling away and a dissolving and an ending that it's always usually for the best, but it doesn't always feel very good.
Doesn't feel that way. Yeah.
And with the solar one, it just sort of feels a bit more like a real kind of initiation of a new beginning and an enthusiasm, or there's something more hopeful.
And also, just not to harp on the Sabian symbol, but that ducks are never alone either. That they find the camaraderie with each other, and that they together, they make their little duck life better. So
it's I do think there's going to be quite a ripple effect with this one, especially with that pond analogy. It's like we're throwing a stone in there. Let's see what happens.
So Antoinette, where can people find you?
My main place is pomegranateastrology.com. That's my website, and I do readings and everything, and I write there. And I've also got a Substack, which is just for free. I do have an Instagram, but I'm not a huge fan of the IG situation. Mainly my website. Yeah, that's pretty much where I like to be found.
Her website is absolutely beautiful, and your readings are wonderful. I'm a customer myself, and I love your writing. So your writing is brilliant, and I'm just a huge fan. And I'm so grateful for you to be here with me talking about this. I couldn't think of a better person to speak with about this, because you make it hopeful. It is a little bit unsure, but thinking about all the permeations of how things can go right, and all the things that we need to know just to be together and be kind to each other.
Ultimately, love and hope and kindness is like, that's the bottom. I got Jupiter and Sag, so I'm just going to harp on about that endlessly. But yeah, I just think that's just ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Love each other no matter what, because that's really the realest thing we have.
It is.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Antoinette. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, me too.